Namaste to all. Welcome back. Welcome back actually, because after it's been a year in this theatre hall. I'm Bal Ram Adhikari, the moderator of this program, and I was one of the guest poets or invited poets last year, and our brother Ji was the moderator. I'm a poetry enthusiast. I love poetry, but the problem is that it's a one-sided affair with poetry. I love, but she doesn't love. But every time I invoke, the poetry runs away from me. That's why I call myself a listener poet rather than writing poet. And our writing poets are here. And, yeah. I'm grateful to NELTA, and particularly President and her team. I know the effort they have put to organize this type of program. And thank you to our poets today and the poetry enthusiasts here. So let me just take 2 or 3 minutes about the program highlights. Here, it is loosely divided into 3 sessions. Altogether, we will have 90 minutes. First session, we will have poetry in performance or poetry recitation. First, we'll listen to 3 poets here, and time we have allocated specific time for them. Then second will be around 20 minutes. Here I'll be moderating interaction among these poets, but it won't be academically encumbered discussion. It will be simple, just what their reflection and thoughts about poetry, and particularly in relation to classroom, English classroom teaching. It will be with a light type of discussion. The last one will be our writer, Professor Vishnu Rai, will conduct around 45 to 30 minutes writing workshop. And we will be all, including our poets, will be engaged in writing, and then we'll have some poetry sharing from the audience as well.
Just a minute. People are more crazed to listen to poetry.
Yeah, please.
This side.
यहाँ बस्दा हुन्छ नि यहाँ बस्दा मिल्छ साथीहरू जति मिल्छ
डिबी कलेज डिएबी कलेज डिएबी दाउला दाउला कलेजमा दाउला डिएबी कलेज डिएबी 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 आउनु फोन गर्नु होला हजुर है
Today's poets, actually, they don't need any introduction. These 3 poets here, and they have multiple dimensions. They are used to wearing different professional hats. First one, I'd like to begin. For detailed introduction, you can I refer you to program highlights page 22, 26. Is there? I'm not going to repeat any information from here. I'm just introducing them from my side, my perception of these people. First one. Whenever I see Abhi, I envy him for two things. He is a rare creator who has excelled equally on page and on stage. There are many people who are good at page, but not so good at stage. And he's the person who I have seen for the last 20 years excel in both page and on stage. And next thing about Abhi is that he's award-winning writer, these things are there. A professor of English, these things I'm not going to repeat. The one thing is that, look at him closely. He himself is a poet. And in point, yeah, the way he carries himself. And we all carry our message through our body, and his message is highly poetic. Next thing that poetry has 2 dimensions. You might notice that performative dimension and silent dimension. And he is the performative dimension of poetry. Abhi is that dimension. Though his silence is at home, when he is creating. But I see always him a poetry in performance. That's why actually we chose this title, seeing his way of life. That's why writing poetry is one thing, but living poetry is another thing. And being both is rare. About Rai sir, he's multilingual writer and the campaigner of English creative writing workshop in Nepal and the advocate of Nenglish or Nepali English. There are many things about him. But about him, he projects the silent dimension of poetry. Something mysterious, something unknown, something hidden, something buried. Because I have been with him for the last 20 years, but I always understand him half. Whether when he speaks, when he is with me. That quality makes Rai sir. That's why the poetry, the less you understand, the more time you continue to read. And then I find Rai sir that type of person. And third one, and next thing, the good thing for us is that one of the scholars from Tripura University is doing his PhD from India. He is conducting his PhD on Rai sir's English poetry. That's good news for us. About Patil sir, if you go through this, his introduction, he has written more than 40 books, 75. We all do that. If we work like him. But the good about Patil sir is, his presence is always expected in NELTA conferences. His presence. And next thing, even if he is absent, his absence is conspicuously visible. Even if he is absent, he is seen in the crowd. And I appreciate that part. And I got to know that recently he got 60 poems in Marathi published. And this year it was released in Maharashtra Literature Festival. Yes, sir? Yes. And it contains 66 poems. And I want him to translate them into Hindi and English languages as well.
If you permit me, I would be happy to send the participant standing on the last line.
Sure, sure.
तपाईँहरूलाई होइन नि बाहिर उभिएकाला हो साथीहरू बस्नु न
In the hall.
के नबुझिरा
Thank you, Ashok sir. Let your machine remain silent so that the inner voice of poetry comes out and so that we can drink in poet's words. I hope you understand that. Okay, now time. If you look at a watch or a mobile, time is creeping. Tick tock, with every passing breath. We all have our time already numbered, like our breath. Time is dripping, tick tock, with our every breath from the mighty clock of existence. So that let's not waste this valuable time. I would like to begin this poetry performance with our respected teacher and teacher. Whatever names you give them become less. I would like to invite Professor Abhi Subedi to perform his poem. Sir, it's up to you. If you want, if you feel comfortable from there, I'll bring. Yeah, I know that. That's why I meant. Yeah.
You are the open time.
The one who has defined time. The one who has defined time should not answer about time.
15 minutes. That's the Ethiopia. 15 minutes. I'll try to read as many poems as I can in 15 minutes. I want to I made, very quickly, I made a friend, my class friend, from Edinburgh University in 1978-79. We were class friends at Edinburgh University. Her name is Barbara Schaaf. She came suddenly from nowhere, and I gave her this book. And before she opened this book, she asked me, have you included those poems that you wrote in Edinburgh? And we found the same poems here in this collection. So that is an amazing 50 years. 50 years ago. Not 50 years ago, the poems written over the past 50 years. So I choose some of the poems from this collection. I wrote poems in Britain when I was a student, and then I wrote poems when I was in Italy, and when I worked in Japan, I wrote poems in Japan and in Nepal. So I have put all those poems in this collection together and then given the introduction to the context of the poetry also. So I just would like to pick up a few poems here and then try to be as swift as possible. I pick up one poem from Edinburgh itself. It's a very direct poem on page 939 if you have the book. Edinburgh, you smash my native vision at first sight and enticed me into searching you along your cobbled streets. To your crushing imagination, crystallized over the ancient rock. I have found you in the musical, I have found you in the musical notes of a senile pianist over North Bridge, when evening bursts into sound like broken glass and scatters over your lonely streets. Edinburgh, I have walked barefoot over your music unaware. I'm bleeding. I have seen you standing naked, a pure dummy, waiting to be clothed in the latest fashion along Princess Street. I have seen you quivering like a lady who waits on your friend, swallowing pain and unease outside the narrow gate. Edinburgh, you are great. You live below Nelson Monument. I had a convulsion, standing below its incompletion on your solid rocks. I met you living on your own in an old building, shutting all the windows to ward off the crashing sunlight, but you are hospitable to me. Then I wrote several poems here. Then I went to Italy. I wrote some poems in Italy, and I visited the museum where I saw the Last Supper of Leonardo da Vinci, and wrote this poem in Milano. On the wall, like everyone in the picture, I too turned to him and he spoke with a lump in my throat. Ah, this is what you have said, in the language of silence, in mixed tumultuous centuries, in 6 tumultuous centuries. We create and break walls to honor your wall. We also bring them down on the heads of children, eating their suppers. But your wall nourishes life. Our walls threaten the same. This was my dream, to see your language written over the corner. We write each other's dreams, no matter where and when, as one as the hearts beat. like one heart beating on this wall. And right there, second one in the same series, the light. I am in a twilight zone between tears and smiles. Hurt deep down by your pain, rising higher and higher with your joy. I understand today your last supper is tears frozen as light on this modest wall. Then next I wrote, I'm just skipping that, leaving that out, and reading one poem that I wrote in Japan somewhere. I'll find that out in a while. And because if I fumble like this, I'll lose my time. In Japan, Tokyo, Nara city, I was looking at the Buddha's statue, and I had written scribbled some poems and holding those poems at the back. At the back, when I was looking at the Buddha's statue, I was ecstatic and I was lost. And after a while, I suddenly felt motion behind me, and I found that the parked deer had come and was chomping my paper. He just swallowed my paper. And this is the poem about that. Buddha, poetry and tear. As the day descends from the Buddha's eyes, I hold it onto a paper where it sits unsteady like me. As the words, heavier than the sky, slither down like evenings from the Buddha's lips, I dot them on paper. As the sun sits like typhoon in the Buddha's Diksha bowl, I wait, opening its folds across the paper. With hands behind, I stand, gazing at the sky, nestled in Buddha's meditation. I feel a tug behind and look. A deer stands there, chomping that paper. I see the dropping day, words heavier than sky, the sun, tumults of the past storm, Buddha's meditation, all trapped in the teary, doleful eyes of the deers. And I reading another poem which I wrote in Nepal, at the different moments of my experience and feeling. A little complex poem, but I found that many students have read this poem or discussed with some of them. Soft storm. I became soft after I heard the tumult and crash on the English stillness. I inherited the soft when sky grew like crocuses over stones and became 5 inches taller that very night. When moon skidded down your walls, speaking in the language of posters and politics, rituals and religions, I became soft as the softness rose like gale, tearing my roofs that very night when the moon sang of lampposts and gutters in the seamless city. I became soft when homeless children in Tamil cried with hunger under the bat-bearing trees of Kathmandu. I became soft when I returned from the Mili, where ceremony dances with mad steps on the unweeded garden of history, growing around protruded rocks. I became soft when I alone turned to you, leaving deep dents of words on these white seas. I became soft storm when I saw a forlorn child carrying transistor radio round his neck, run around, wailing to find his mother in the corridors of violent history. Very moving photograph. I became soft storm when I saw a man beaten mercilessly for no reason before his family, by nobody for no reason in no sensible time. I became soft. When I saw a blood-stained sword speaking in the earth's ears with the bruised human lips in the far corner under the moon of history and dreams, playing hide and seek in open museums of the human times. I became soft since you gave words, but did not listen to them, gave storms, but did not wait to see Leela over the silent stone. Crocuses have grown over the stone. I saw last moonlit night, storms have loitered in the narrow lanes, when I too have walked alone, pensively in rain tears, and little chuckles of sun laughter that are risen and melted like rainbow. Soft is my storm that raises and raises over silent pages, silent stones, silent forlorn stars carrying war memories, silent dilapidations of gold abodes, where dance and songs and are buried under helpless divine debris in human courtyards. Soft is what you saw, but the mad time pools winding all that we see and live with, stone growing in flower, moon humming melodies, history rushing under the lamppost and over barefoot land, birds singing of bizarre journeys over the warming earth, rhododendron blooming in winters, mother earth telling of the tumults in the songs of sad birds. This soft gale, this soft unique unison, but in these hard times I want to melt like rainbow. My soft storm in your minuscule sky, my soft storm tells in ripples story of your uneasy lake. And then there's some time. In the meantime, I want to give the background. Reading from this, reading some of this is there.
The hall was better. Many people are interested.
सेटिङ भइसक्यो होइन हुँदैन ढिला भइसक्यो सुरु गरौँ सर हुँदैन सुरु भइसक्यो होइन Let's begin.
Briefly, I was telling you, I wrote a poem called Kathmandu Odyssey in 1996, and we performed the poem in Kathmandu, and people had acted that poem out, and one of the actors was the late Professor Bhandari. He also participated. He acted in this poem. And this poem is the second edition of that. That was big. This is a minuscule frame Lahari Shai. I just take out some of the lines, and as Dr. Bal Ram sir said, little performative. And we had performed at Russian Cultural Center of stage this poem. I'll just pick up from the middle. There is no time, I just would like to pick. Oh, to miss you under these skies, some characteristics. This is a theatrical, performative poetry. Oh, to miss you under this sky. मेरो यो गीतमा झुनमुल छ नाता नेपाली also comes there. त्यो तिमी हैनौ को भन्न सक्छ. Don't fill the gap in any other way. No gap exists there now. You have bent my sky. No gap there. You have bent my sky to the horizons and skyline of your mind, body and room. My love is like you, red, red roses bloom. That's Robert Burns' song. That's how this Scottish sing the song. I was a student, that's why I learned. The rose disappeared into the smoke long ago, but you will continue to sit like storm in my waters, like the soil of this land, under the shower of our times, listening to my times like the Scottish sky. Plenty hairy, plenty mills, plenty pig to fill the fields, plenty penny buns as well, that's our toast for my step together on the go, hill for hill. This is my toast for you. Let's leave with a glow in words that rush through our veins. Oh, I'm haiku. There are some haiku poems I have written, so I just read from page 124. From this plain Lahari, it's like a plain Lahari. They put it in very small size for some reason. I hope you are familiar with haiku form. I don't follow the 5-7-5 syllable rule, that is artificial, but the spirit is there. I have never imagined you to get, no, I was thinking of the wrong one. Pigeons descend all, carrying your own sky. Abhi is here. Next, pomegranate bursts, pressed by sun's hands, but doesn't fall. Faster than evening, louder than flower, I know that was you. Bright half moon behind bamboo haze, poet Biplab Pratik. There's one poet by the river. Something cries here in the moonlight, river song of haiku. Mosquitoes bite me every year. Mosquitoes, how did you bite in the same place this year? Do you carry a map? Sky rests in crow's wings after long, tiring flight. The last one. Crow, after long flight, rubs his beak on branch, shaking his sky in flowers. Thank you for your patience.
Sorry for rupturing the rapture of this melody. This is what I am supposed to do here. Thank you, Abhi sir. When Abhi sir was reciting poem, all of you might have been, obviously you were composing your own poems in silence. And Abhi sir, do you remember this one? I may be silent, but I'm thinking. I may be silent, but I'm thinking. I may not talk, but don't mistake me for a word. Do you remember, sir? Who translated that into Nepali? From Japanese to English to Nepali. It is you who did. This is the from, sir. Adhunik Japanese Kavita. Yeah, published by Sada Prakasi.
Published by Sada, that's the Japanese.
Okay. It means we are silent, but we are not more. We all are composing our own poems. Thank you, sir, for that. Now, I would like to request Raisha, the silent dimension of poetry, to recite his poems here. and the time sensor and
Thank you, Bal Ramji. Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Okay. I am a simple and easily available. I am a simple and easily available. I give life. I can turn into a hurricane, powerful and destructive. I can take life too. A very good evening for you all. Abhi Sir's poem Edinburgh made me nostalgic because I was also a student there, and it was such beautifully crafted poem. Thank you, sir. I really love that poem. Abhi Sir also recited some of his haikus, and he said that he doesn't follow the rule of 575 syllables. I write ghazals in English, and also I try to maintain both radif and kafiya, if you know ghazals, but it's very difficult to maintain kafiya. But I maintain radif. So I will recite some of my ghazals, and maybe if time allows, a couple of poems. So here is one for you. This title is Without You. You see this, my photograph over there. That was maybe 25 years ago or something. Yeah. And this ghazal is something represent that age, because you are of that age now, most of you. So, this way goes the ghazal. Days are lifeless without you. Days are lifeless without you. Nights are sleepless without you. Days are lifeless without you. Nights are sleepless without you. The room is angry with me. The room is angry with me. The bed makes a face without you. The bed makes a face without you. Morning lies like a patient. I have shamelessly adopted this simile from Iliad, you know. Yeah, so forth. I must confess that. So, morning lies like a patient. Evening is restless without you. Evenings is restless without you. See the plight of this fellow? Gardens don't invite me now. Gardens don't invite me now. Paths are walkless without you. Paths are walkless without you. It's enough for me. It's enough for me. It's enough for me that we love each other. It's enough for me that we love each other. Whether we could live together without you, whether we could live together without you, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I'm alive. I don't know how I am alive. Life a lost case without you. Life a lost case without you. Here is दूसरी गजल आपकी नजर करता हूँ. Next गजल.
The first one was dedicated to a girl in NELTA.
Well, never mind. Some things are unsaid better. You see that at my age, people always think about the next world. And how I think, that's something like this. And the title you can say is I don't care. So that's the title. What happens after death? What happens after death? What happens after death? I don't care. What happens after death? I don't care. Whether I'm buried or cremated, I don't care. Whether I'm buried or cremated, I don't care. I don't pray him. I don't pray him. I don't ask for anything either. I don't pray him. I don't ask for anything either. Whether it's heaven or hell, I don't care. Whether it's heaven or hell, I don't care. I like walking. I like walking. I like walking. I like walking on untrodden windy paths. I like walking on untrodden windy paths. Whether I reach the destination, I don't care. Whether I reach the destination, I don't care. Whether I reach the destination, I don't care. Now, the next ghazal, a few shades of my next ghazal. Please just indicate me time.
We don't care.
Words have no lips. Words have no lips. Words have no lips, but they can kiss you. You know? Words have no lips, but they can kiss. You know? Words have no teeth. Words have no teeth, but they can bite. You know? Words have no lips, but they can kiss. You know? Words have no teeth, but they can bite. You know? Truth resides in heart. Truth resides in heart, not in words. Truth resides in heart, not in words. Words may lie, they may deceive, you know. Words may lie, they may deceive, you know. Said words are good. That's what Professor Patil was saying. Said words are good, but unsaid are better. Said words are good, but unsaid are better. If you can only hear them, you know. If you can only hear them, you know. You worship your own idol. That's okay with me. You worship your own idol. maybe political idol, educational idol, whoever. Right? You worship your own idol, that's okay with me. But every stone is not God, you know. But every stone is not God, you know. There is no greater punishment than life, you know. There is no greater punishment than life, you know. But the prisoner does not know his crime, you know. But the prisoner does not know his crime, you know. Okay, so funerals. And I will recite a couple of poems. Maybe I have 5-7 minutes now. I was talking with Professor Patil, and he was saying that we must preserve our mother tongue. That's right. And there is always, now there is also debate in ELT pundits that there is this colonization, we must decolonize ELT, that sort of thing. But there is also problems. So the theme of the poem is that my true loves, that's the title, my true loves. Nepali is my wife, English my mistress. Nepali is my wife, English my mistress. My wife is my life. My wife is my life, simple and graceful. I know her every mood, and she does mine. She takes care of my home, my kids, everything. To tell you the truth, without her, I am nothing. She takes care of my kids, my home, everything. To tell you the truth, without her, I am nothing. She is the sunshine of my life. She is the sunshine of my life, but she is just a housewife. My mistress is the salt of my life. My mistress is the salt of my life, modern and charming. She is a living encyclopedia. She is a living encyclopedia. I can talk about anything with her. She keeps me in touch with things and helps me to deal with strangers. Outside my home, my outside home is quite dark without her. I owe her a lot in my life. I owe her a lot in my life, but she can't be my wife. I love them both equally well. I love them both equally well. And my problem, you know, and this is also probably your problem. My problem is that I don't want to lose either of them. I don't want to lose either of them. Maybe one more. If there is a program on poem and if we are not talking about love, then this is not poetry. And this love poem I dedicate to Abhi sir, because I don't know, he might go back to his, college days. Okay, so here the poem is. after how long we met, after how long we met seems ages. Even talking with you seems strange. Don't know where to start and what to say. Don't know where to start and what to say. Your eyes are still the same. Your eyes are still the same, talkative and bewitching. Your eyes are still the same, talkative and bewitching. There are silver streaks in your jet black hair. There are silver streaks in your jet black hair. You have put on some weight and grown a wee bit plump. But it suits you fine and makes you more desirable. You have put on some weight and grown a wee bit plump. But it suits you fine and makes you more desirable. You say that I look also the same. You say that I look also the same, but there are changes in you and in me that we cannot see. But there are changes in you and me that we cannot see. And it's good, because some things are better unseen. How I wish to see you. How I wish to see you. But I can't even cup your face in my hands. How I was dying to talk to you, but I couldn't even say what I wanted to say. The school bell is gone. You have to collect your grandson and I, my granddaughter. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I will not need sleeping pills tonight.
My saying thank you is not enough for Raisa. And Raisa, we all can relate to your words and feelings. And thank you again for turning up our emotions. And then
Once more is impossible.
yeah,
We don't care.
just see, keep time for Miss later. And then making us restless and making us hunger for love, obviously for life. What was that? What was that came, tossed, kissed, and disappeared? What was that came, tossed, kissed, and disappeared? Was it youth? Now, Patil sir is here to recite his poem, and he says that he has how many, sir? 2 or 3? It is up to you. How many you want? Eh? Okay. I'd like to invite Patil sir for. What did you say?
Sir, one Hindi also.
We are exclusive to English.
Okay. Good afternoon, friends. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Now, a few days ago, I received a message from NELTA. You can't hear me? A few days ago, I received a message from NELTA, and the officer said, Professor Patil, do you write poetry? I said, yes, I do, but I haven't written lots of poems in English. Recently, this collection of my Marathi poems, called Koronayan, like Ramayan. So this particular collection of poetry reveals the positive side, the negative side of human beings, human nature. So it was published recently in January, and it was released during the literary festival in Maharashtra. I have 2 poems. The first one is called A Conversation in Heaven. And this particular conversation takes place or happens between William Blake and D.H. Lawrence. Last night, I dreamt of William Blake. Last night, I dreamt of William Blake sitting on his old car's bonnet. Last night, I dreamt of William Blake sitting on his old car's bonnet, scribbling a few lines for our sake, writing an Italian sonnet. "Hello," said he, "my friend David." David is David Herbert Lawrence. "Hello," said he, "my friend David, would you like to write on COVID? Instead of writing on a snake, why don't you write on vaccines fake?" Said David, "That's a great idea, and I will surely do that, my dear." When they arrive in Kathmandu, from places such as Timbuktu, just to exchange how do you do's. Academics, there are a few who come to share their news and views. Academics, there are a few, I don't say few, I say a few. So, academics, there are a few who come to share their news and views and to get to know who is who. Here, scholars gather to pursue, swallow and digest, not just chew. Research in English, old and new. They could not meet for a few years. I'm talking about NELTA. They could not meet for a few years due to COVID pandemic fears. That was a terrible virus who tried hard to tire us. That was a terrible virus who tried hard to tire us and turned every stone to tear us. Desperate, they rushed to Cyrus. You know, Cyrus means Cyrus Poonawalla, who has Serum Institute of Virology in Pune. So desperate, they rushed to Cyrus, who asked the virus not to scare us, who made a vaccine named Covishield and tested it in his private field. But some pharmacists formed a guild and brutally reaped blood-stained yield, and umpteen patients cruelly killed. The second poem is grumbling numbers. You know, I've chosen numbers from 1 to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 0. And these numbers are now grumbling, they are complaining, and their complaint is that they are usually mispronounced by different nationalities. You know, like I was in Vietnam, so Vietnamese variety was different from Japanese variety where I worked for 3 years after that. Indian variety is different from Nepalese variety. So once numbers hold a digital meat, to voice their complaints in words neat. Each one says humans treat them shabbily. Each one says humans treat them shabbily and bend their names happily. Number one. One says he doesn't know why some call him Woon. If you're familiar with Yorkshire English, one becomes Woon. Woonday. Bus is said as bus. Husband becomes husband. Right. So one says he doesn't know why some call him Woon to rhyme with Yorkshire Sun. S-U-N Sun. Two says he doesn't like to be called Tu. When you listen to people coming from the Middle East or West Asia, they don't say ta and da, they say ta and da, document. They can't say document, they say document. So da becomes the and ta becomes ta. Two says he doesn't like to be called tu, that gels so well with do. Three says crestfallen. Three sits crestfallen because he is addressed as three, and he is addressed here as three and there as tiri. Though this distortion is completely free and doesn't entail any monetary fee. How can four be behind? How can four be behind when speakers are so unkind? How can four be behind when speakers are so unkind? She says she is four, but doesn't know why some call her four and four. if you listen to different varieties of English. Then comes 5. I was in Vietnam for 3.5 years, and I noticed that Vietnamese speakers of the English language tend to delete the last sound. So 5 becomes 5. Wife becomes Y. Right? So my wife wasn't there. I was there for 3.5 years. And on the very first day of my stay, my colleagues came to me and said, Professor Patil, why don't you try YY? What he wanted to say was, why don't you try white wine? So white becomes Y, white becomes Y, wine also becomes Y. So then comes 5 and heaves a sigh, because his users are so hungry, they swallow the closing fricative were and make him sound like Shakespeare's Fie, F-I-E, Fie, Fie-D. So then comes 5 and heaves a sigh, because his users are so hungry, they swallow the closing fricative were and make him sound like Shakespeare's Fie, which makes him terribly angry. 6 is the unhappiest of all, for so differently him they call. Here he is sickest. If you go to Kashmir, they can't say 6. They have problems articulating certain consonant clusters. So they insert an extra sound, right? So sickest. 6 is the unhappiest of all, for so differently him they call. Here he is sickest, but there he is sick. In Vietnam, 6 becomes sick. How many members are there in your family? Professor, there are 6 members in my family. Right. So 6 is the unhappiest of all, and for so differently him they call. Here he is sickest, but there he is sick. 7 says his name is close to heaven. 7 says his name is close to heaven, but in one place he is called Swain, and in another, Seven. 8 grumbles, he is there inside height. 8, the spelling. 8 grumbles, he is there inside height, but he is dwarfed into 8. Right? How many people were there? 8. We don't say, most of us don't say 8, right? So 8 grumbles, he is there inside height, but he is dwarfed, shortened into 8, and is pronounced as yet. 9 complains, he is reduced to 9. Her fate is similar to that of 5. They curtail her tail and reduce her length. They curtail her tail and reduce her length, and miserably damage her strength. And so she'd like to bid goodbye. Then says 10, I have 2 digits. The other numbers have only 1 digit. Then says 10, I have 2 digits, where 1 is quiet but 0 fidgets. Where 1 is quiet but 0 fidgets, and makes me richer than all of you. Respectful speakers there are few, not a few. Respectful speakers there are few. The kangaroos can't understand the camel, and the camel the kangaroo. These refer to different varieties, you know. Kangaroo variety means Australian variety. The word numbers says you are all hyponyms. The word numbers says you are my hyponyms, I am your hyponym. But how can they change my phoneme? My senses become numb when they call me numbers. Not numbers, but numbers. My senses become numb when they call me numbers. I'm not Tom, Dick, Harry, but number 10. My orders are scriptures even to the Big Ben. You know the Big Ben in London. Now comes the perfect circle. Now comes the perfect circle that works numerical miracles. Now comes the perfect circle that works numerical miracles and babbles, my name is 0, but I am your hero. My name is 0, but I am your hero. If you doubt, ask my Indian father. You know that 0 was gifted by Aryabhatta. Yes. So now comes a perfect circle that works numerical miracles and babbles, "My name is Zero, but I am your hero. If you doubt, ask my Indian father. You and I are not birds of the same feather. You and I are not birds of the same feather. It pains me when some call me Jero and some call me Jiro." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing the gauges of numbers and how we will handle them correctly now. Now we'll move to second phase of our program. In this phase, I have some questions to the poets here. These questions are not so academically loaded, just on my own reflection. For this, we have maximum 20 minutes. I'll call it, and we have after this we'll have writing activity here. Our Vishnu sir will conduct one short kind of workshop on poetry writing, one or two, and then we'll end with one or two poems from Abhi Subedi sir and Vishnu sir. Okay. So there are some questions for you. Okay, some questions might be shared by, might be common to all, or some might be specific to the individual person. I'll begin with Abhi sir. So we all want to write poems, and we said that we all are poets at some point in our life. So what makes a poem a poem? What makes a poem a poem? For example, when you are reading or when you are listening to this, yeah, this is poem and this is not. We have some, though there is no like any barometer to measure it. But what do you think about what makes, in your view?
When I sit down to write, let's say, a poem, I transcend something, I change something, regular. Something that I say in everyday conversation parlance. When I'm writing a poem, I change that slightly, sometimes quite radically also. The purpose in such process would be that I want to say something not said by anybody, but that's not possible. But I try. So this, for me, writing a poem is an attempt to, it is excitement, it is joy actually, to say something that has not been said. And I feel I'm saying something very different, very original, not said by others. This tendency, this impulse that goes into the making of a
So, when you write, because I have been reading your poems, and not only poems, because you write plays in the poetic form, like Argo Fruta Sapna, and then there are many. What do you emphasize when you write? The rhythm of the melody of ideas, or the rhythm or melody of words? Which one do you do? Both come together, but which one matter to you more?
That's a very difficult question. I use poetry in my plays because that gives me a lot of space for saying many things in few words. I use symbols, I use very metaphorical expressions. So that's why I tend to use poetry in my plays. And secondly, when my characters speak in poetry, they evoke, they bring in the very deep-seated joys and sense of pain, and that becomes poetry.
Okay, thank you, sir. Right, sir. The similar one. What do you think that? What quality do you think that makes our writing a poem? Because otherwise, why should we have the genre like poetry? If everything is poetry, what makes it a poem? In your views?
It's very difficult to say what qualities you look for in a poem. People look different qualities. People find different things in the same poem. A poem is actually also interpreted differently by different people. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of qualities I would look for in a good poem. The most important for me is that it should touch my heart. That is what I look for. There are several other things like poetic devices, But poem for me is that it touches your heart.
Thank you, sir. Because I want to know about this from all poets. That's why. What do you think about?
That's a very significant question, a huge question. Now, I would like to start with the quotation. So we usually say what oft was thought, but ne'er so well expressed. Like we think in a very similar manner, but there are certain people who can express things in a very unusual manner, unique ways. Now, when we talk about poetic qualities, we need to think of two things. Number one, the content. And when I say content, what I mean is ideas, feelings, emotions. Like in the poem Daffodils, the poet starts thinking in terms of daffodils dancing and fluttering in the breeze, right? And T.S. Eliot, as our friend, colleague pointed out, in Prof says, the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient thrived upon a table. So you see the poet is able to see similarity between dissimilarities or among dissimilarities. So the content is very important. The idea is important. The emotion is important. And the other thing is the language, the code. The content is number one, code is number two. What I mean by code is you can play with the language. Once you master the language, you can play with the language. For example, in the poem Daffodils, Wordsworth says, "What wealth the show to me had brought." If you think in terms of grammar, you will say, what nonsense is this? The poet has violated all grammatical rules, because the usual order would be, the show brought great wealth to me. But it becomes prose, and it turns into poetry when the poet says, what wealth the show to me had brought. So I think these two things are very important. These two things are there to make a poem what poem is.
Thank you. Now, Raisa, because you have been a campaigner of English creative writing in Nepal, and you have worked with the international figure like Alan Mali for many years. Why do you think that our teachers, and when we say teachers and our students, by extension, why do you think that our students need poetry? Because we all are teachers here.
Yeah, well, actually I didn't expect this large crowd here, because I read some years back, some Americans had written, poetry is dead. But it shows that poetry is not dead. And because poetry touches your heart, which is why they are here. I mean, they are all language teachers. All they are doing how are you and how do you do in their class. That is what they are teaching. But internally, they love poems, love poetry. So that's the importance of poetry. Besides, when you use poetry or creative writing, it brings to you fun, it brings pleasure. You are out of the box of the mundane routine of your classroom. It brings fresh air, and not only for the students, also for teachers. It keeps teachers' language fresh. If you are writing poems or writing stories, if you are doing literary things. And that's why we believe we are a small group of English teachers from different Asian countries and some Americans as well. So we believe that literature should be used because literature is the soul of your class. Without literature, your class is just the body. It's very, very dull.
Yeah.
This is what I would like to say.
Thank you, sir. Abhi sir, because when we were listening to your poem, then you were taking us back in time and space both to Edinburgh and then Japan. How has writing poetry affected your career as a teacher, as a critic, particularly as a teacher? How has it affected your life as a teacher, career as a teacher?
Literature has always inspired me to go ahead. One very important element about literature is that it is invention. The moment you lose the capacity to invent something, then you should stop writing literature. Literature is invention. And I tell you one episode. We were having a folklore congress at the Nepal. The earth started shaking. Again, building shook. There were people in the next section, the bomb bole group. On this side we were having a folklore congress. We all descended, we took people down and then it was shaking and then we said, don't panic, the building is not going to fall. And then we brought them to the ground. I've written a haiku, if there is time I'll read later. Then as the earth was shaking, I took out a paper and a pen and started writing haiku. I've written haiku in Nepali and English also. I've read some of it here. And we were sitting there from the Hare Ram, so the Bombay group. Some lady opened her bag, took out a mirror, Maina, and started combing hair. And I wrote a haiku, Bari Sunautu. She took this from the bag, she combed her hair. That's the end of the earthquake. So this is something that I don't have any except poetry to express. So I rush to that medium. So poetry is that very faculty of mind that allows you to invent something that is not there. It is this very impulse that always took me all my life. Success, I don't say I'm hugely successful, but that personally, my journey is shaped by this very creative aspect. And as we say, we of big teachers in Nepal, we say that creative literature can be a very important tool for teaching students language. So that is my message.
Thank you, sir. Well, the last question. It was Hedy Simon, sir, right, sir? It was Hedy Simon who said, poetry is dead, does anybody care? That was the text that I know. It was, I think, published in New York Times, something like that, long back. And then somewhere she has said that if it is dead, then I have rephrased it as the education system, but not what she has said that if poetry is dead, we teachers are responsible for that. We school teachers are responsible for that. But what I have written here is the education system. But when I see, when we see this type of presence here, then it is difficult to say that. But at the same time, there was another article on Rumi is the best-selling poet in US still. Rumi. That's why what perspective we want to look from, that is different. Patil sir, what can we know? It's okay. There is poetry is everywhere, even in our spoken language, in our writing. Because this act of writing involves deliberate attempt of organizing words, sentences, and definite purpose and distinct pattern. It means poetry is everywhere. But the way poetry is perceived in our school system or education system may be true in Indian context as well. What can we do to bring poetry back to the classroom? Is there anything that?
Okay. I think as
Microphone.
I think as teachers of the English language and literature, we need to prioritize our priorities, objectives of teaching language and literature in our classes. Now, several years ago, an article was published in the Times of India. It was written by Shashi Tharoor. And his main argument in that particular particular article was that most of the terrorists came from technology and science background. Because I'm reminded of the book called True Cultures by C.P. Snow. There is the head of culture of the head and the culture of the heart. Science and technology nourishes and nurtures your intellect, your head. But it is literature that nurtures and nourishes your heart and humanizes you. So his argument was that most of the terrorists came from technology and science background. That's why there is an urgent need for all of us to consider the importance of poetry or literature in general, so that our boys and girls in our classrooms, our students in the classrooms become humane, not just human, but humane. So you are right, we need to introduce literature. I say, even in engineering colleges, even in management colleges and institutions, I say, why don't you include some literature? Maybe short stories, some interesting short stories, humorous essays, some simple poems like Daffodils, Solitary Reaper, Stopping by Woods in a snowy evening, Second Coming, some simple, short, simple poems.
Thank you.
Right. And the other factor that is responsible for the loss of interest in poetry is we are responsible. You know, we go with the textbook in the classroom and we say, well, my dear students, today I'm going to teach poetry. Remember, poetry teaching is not a child's play. Poetry teaching is difficult. And immediately the question that comes to the mind of the learner is, my goodness, my teacher who has been teaching English language and literature for 40 years says even today that teaching poetry is not an easy task. I was born only yesterday. How can I understand poetry? So we don't know what damage we cause in our classrooms. We make sweeping statements, blanket, black and white statements, you know, right? Poetry is difficult. Story is easy. I mean, I pity those people who make generalizations like this and who assume things like that. When we assume, we make an ass of you and me. You look at the spelling of the word assume, A-S-S-U-M-E. When we assume, we make an ass of you and me. So we both of us become asses because we have wrong assumptions. So we need to introspect. I think most students lose interest in poetry because they have very bad teachers. Very bad teachers. You know, the teacher is like a farmer. I always think of this. The teacher is like a farmer. He owns a cow, and the poem is a cow, and this teacher milks the cow to the last drop. Leaves no milk for the calf to suck from the mother's udders. Right? And as a consequence, the student becomes lame, haggard, pale, dependent. Right? Why do we do all this? we can just give this central idea and ask our learners to respond. Let them respond to poetry, to literature. We dole out everything for them. They do nothing. Right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for a great idea. Abhi sir, there is one query from the, I don't know who gave me this one. It says that context and intended meaning of the poem, the soft storm from the writer's perspective. Please, somebody just handed it to me. They say that,
Yes, sir, we also want.
okay, there are many friends that they want to know the context and intended meaning. Let's not speak from that deconstructive perspective. You're one intended meaning of the poem, the sophish poem. They want to know, in a very specific way.
That one doesn't make things happen. Can I just take in one more minute?
Sure, please.
W.B. Yeats, the very famous Irish and English poet, he died in 1939. And he lay dead. And another Anglo poet, W.S. Auden, went to see him and then wrote a poem on his death in memory of W.B. Yeats. He was not yet buried. And one line that occurs in that poem is, poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the valley of its own saying. That's what he said. But as Rais has said earlier, that was wrong. Poetry continued to make sense and think happen. The question was
And
about
the context and your intended meaning of that poem.
I don't have one definite context about that. I told you earlier, I was very badly haunted by the story of human suffering. I have picked up instances of human suffering. There was one, I saw one photograph of a child running around, a video, carrying a transistor radio around his neck. His mother was there. He was going around carrying the transistor radio looking for his mother. How painful. I have picked up these stances of pain in that poem. So it is this moments of pain that make me soft. When people become soft, they cry. So those are the moments that made me soft. But the moments were not only very gruesome, harsh, they were also very sublime, soft. There are certain instances where I have deeply felt sense of love also comes in the poems. So it is these various moments that inspire me to write poems that make me soft. So we become soft not only by the dukkha, but also by the joyful moment. So I can't tell you there is one thing, one context in that poem, multiple contexts.
Can I just take a minute, if you don't mind?
Okay, please. Quick,
Your question was about intended meaning, or implied meaning.
yeah, it was the question from the audience.
If you ask me, I don't subscribe to that particular idea. There is nothing like intended meaning. I'll give you an example. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Once I was teaching this particular poem in my undergraduate class, and I asked my students, what do you think is the meaning of the word host? Now, from your point of view, from the intended meaning point of view, the meaning of the word host is innumerable, uncountable, numberless, because he saw numberless flowers, right? But then I asked my students, do you have any other interpretation? And they came up with brilliant interpretations. I was happily surprised. One boy said, sir, I think the poet is playing the role of the host. Sorry, the flowers are playing the role of the host, and the poet is playing the role of the guest. It is the responsibility of the host to entertain the guest. And that's exactly what the flowers are doing. So that was one interpretation. And another student, this time a girl, came up with another brilliant interpretation. She said, sir, in biology, we have a host and a parasite. Now in this poem, the poet is the parasite. And the flowers are the host. because the poet is seeking pleasure, deriving pleasure from the dancing and fluttering flowers. So they are the host, and he is a parasite, right? So these are brilliant interpretations, and that's why we should not insist on one single interpretation. There are interpretations and interpretations and interpretations.
Thank you, Professor Patil, for that. And then when officer was relating the experience, and there was some pain and pleasure, and something like Jack Lacan's that Duisa, where you pain and pleasure goes simultaneously. And I have used Nepali word for that Duisa, Pidananda. Yeah, where you cannot avoid one while seeking for the other. And then, yeah, there is this side of, even if the site is very beautiful and then we are trying to compose, during that time, the type of suffocation, that's the sense of helplessness that we suffer because of lack of words, and then the missing or intended meaning, that I feel a sort of pain there. When it comes out and pleasure is there. That's why, yeah, that's why. Okay, now we are moving to the last session. Now it is poetry in action. Our Raisar will conduct, I don't know what he's going to conduct, we haven't shared it beforehand. Raisar will, around 25 minutes, Raisar will be here to conduct the writing workshop. This will help us to create or to create poems, to help our students create poems in the classroom. Regarding this, I want to share one poem by Christopher Laws, how motivation, inspiration is inevitable for our students. The teacher, come to the age, student, we might fall. Teacher, come to the age, it is too high. The teacher, come to the age, and they came. The teacher pushed, and the student flew out. That's why that type of motivation we need. And Raisar will give some tips and demonstrate how we can use in the classroom.
Thank you. And now the fun time is over, and you have to work. I'm sorry, but it's being very creative. So I hope you will enjoy it. So I will do two very short activity of writing poems. And after you write, when the time is over, those who finish, they will raise their hands, and we will invite 5 of them to recite their creation. It's very short creation, of course, and you don't have to be Shakespeare or Blake or whoever. Okay, that is what we believe in creative writing classes. We are not trying to, we do not expect them to be Kalidas and Devkota, but we are trying to make them creative, because these schools are often blamed that they have killed creativity. Okay? So this is
No, not now.
not now.
No, not now.
I will give you tasks.
No.
No, please. I will give you tasks, 2 simple tasks, and then you write them, and then you have the opportunity to recite them. I will request everyone, but I don't compel anyone. This is just the request. Even I request to the professors, if they like. So the first we write some haikus, because they are very short. And you know that haiku is 7 syllables, 3 lines poem, 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables second line, 5 syllables third line. Although Abhi sir He doesn't follow that rule. And in English language, haikus are written that way. They don't follow it strictly. Because Japanese counting of syllables and English counting of syllables, Urdu and Nepali counting of syllables are different. So I give you 2 lines of the haiku and you have to complete the 3rd line. Okay? So write it down. I will tell you. An aged old blind man, an aged old blind man, that's the first line. I repeat, an aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, that's the second line. Sitting alone at midnight. Now you have to complete the 3rd line. Okay? This is the first. The second haiku is 2 haikus. Let me tell you again. Under the street lamp, that's the first line. Under the street lamp, street children huddle together. Street children huddle together. And now you have to complete the 3rd line. So you have 5 minutes. And those who finish within 5 minutes, they will raise hands. Keep track of time. I don't have time.
Waiting for bright future. Waiting for bright future. Waiting for sunny morning.
Okay. I think because we don't have time and some of you have finished, so we'll stop this activity here and listen to their creations. Yes.
Wait, just wait.
Hello, hello. Stop. Raise hand first. Yes, please.
Let me begin with the second. Under the street lamp, street children huddle together, looking for a warm embrace.
Looking for a
Warm embrace.
warm embrace. Okay. I'm sure you have maintained the syllabus. Because this is in the classroom activity. You are not as free as Abhi sir here. Okay, next one. Please recite your next one.
An aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, looking at the burning corpse at the car tirelessly. there is no proper rhyming or expression of first line.
That's not a haiku. Too long, I would say.
More than
Please
5.
go there for the last bench. Last bench.
So, your side, over, sir. Or to your right, sir. So, to your right. So, so can I recite?
Yeah.
So, over here, sir. To your right.
In is old blind man sitting alone at midnight, hanging life like a fan.
Right. Next one.
Hanging life like a fan.
Hanging life like
Hanging life like a fan.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Another one.
Another one. Under the street lamp. Let's wait. Let him finish. Under the street lamp.
These mics, please.
Under the street lamp, street children huddle together, making them a nice camp.
Okay. An aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, thinking of times long gone by. This is the first one. And the second one. Under the street lamp, street children huddle together with grumbling stomach and shaky hands. So, sir, can I also you recite an original poem of mine? It will not take long.
No, because we don't have time. And I request Prof sirs here that they will listen and maybe later on comment on them. Okay. Who will have one? No, there.
May I recite?
Let's I think this side, sir.
Stop. Just a minute. If there is any female contestant, I will be glad. Any female?
Try one. An aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, turning his past light on. The second one. Under the street lamp, street children huddle together, looking at the street light, wondering of their future.
Okay. That's too long. Yes. Let's continue. Yes.
An aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, looking stars continuously. Under the street lamp, street children huddle together without thin blankets.
Without?
Thin blankets.
Without thin blankets. Okay. Yes.
I tried my best. An aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight floated into a cold lake. And second, under the street lamp, street children huddled together, hushed with cold night.
Okay, thank you. I was told that maybe this creation might be tinted. No? Okay. Huh? Sorry? Next conference. Okay. Right. I will stop here. I know that you wanted to recite yours, but there is no time. I will do another activity. But before that, I will tell you mine. I have also written here. The second one is already mine, so I know the answer. The first one, an aged old blind man sitting alone at midnight, listening to the moon. And the second one, if you would like to know, that's street children, under the street lamp post, under the lamppost or something, street lamppost. Street children huddle together, paper fire flickers. That's the, okay. Here is this second and final activity. What I would like you to do is, you hold your neighbor's hand and close your eyes for maybe 5 seconds. And then you will write your feeling, how you feel. Okay? You got it? You will hold your neighbor's hand, sitting the person next to you, for 5 seconds. And then write your feeling about it. Okay. For example, I will hold my colleague's hand here for 5 seconds. I close my eyes. I will write my feeling about it, and you will do the same. What you do the same. Our male or female doesn't matter. I can hold hands with somebody else. I will hold his hand. I have to write you, but please do. Do it.
Guys, let's do, although we are not daring enough like him, please let's follow, at least for the sake of this activity.
Yeah, I get imagination.
पचास अठार बाह्र टिप्नु त होइन 98
Right. Right, sir, has already got it down.
I am done.
Yes. Okay, please.
Can I? Am I loud enough for everyone to hear?
50 18 12
Hello.
Yeah. 50 18
This is a haiku that I just wrote. Mushy and sweaty, though I feel some warmth inside. I wonder what she felt when I grabbed her hand.
Okay. There is another one. Please.
I don't know whether it is poem or not. Next is my friend.
I held his hand, guessing what others think. They may tell us lesbians. I felt hard and harsh like rose thorn, but after some seconds gave me positivity. One saying, the roots of education are bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No ladies this time?
All right. Sticky, trembling, soft, warm, farewell.
Very nice. Very nice. That is something. Yes. Yes.
Just 2 lines. So I feel very warm and cool, comfortable and soulful.
Very good.
We take the last one.
Thank you, sir. Just now, I tried to write a ghazal. How to feel? That was the title. If I had any feelings, if I had any feelings, I don't know. If I had any feelings, I don't know. How anyone thinks, I don't know. How anyone thinks, I don't know. My heart melts, my lip sings. My heart melts, my lip sings. I don't know. Either laughter or sorrow it brings, I don't know. How to flap my paper wings. How to flap my paper wings, I don't know. In short period of time, how to dance and sing, I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you don't know. Okay, so because time is up, so I will.
Can we take one?
Reservation for the females.
Yeah.
Hello, my friend. And so, warm support and feeling of friendship stand. Feeling of warm hands, so soft and smooth like rubber band. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Nice.
एउटा poem
Well,
सुनाउँ न हाम्रो भाइ सरबाट।
you can ask them to comment if you like, but I would, what I have jotted down here, I will look in. So the second one, rough hands. Rough hands represent hard work, compilation of obligations trickling down to me. That's the first one. Here, holding her hands into my hands, holding her hands into my hands, I thought this world should be as beautiful and warm as her hands.
Thank you, Rai sir, and all of you who put your whole synergy in creating a poem. Here we are. Now this is we're at the end of the program. I also want to take the opportunity to recite my short poem before I leave today. What comes earlier? What comes earlier? We walk hand in hand, beaming with joy. We walk hand in hand, beaming with joy, swallowing the tears of sorrow. Forget not each other, break not each other, my dear. Who knows what comes earlier, death or tomorrow? Now I request Professor Rai. Rai sir.
heart.
Thank you very much, lovely audience.